Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Horror Stories. I know many of you use these episodes to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Story 1. It was during the summer of last year. I was a broke college student. My parents were happy to help with my tuition, but my university was in an urban and rather upscale area. Although most of my tuition was covered, I still struggled to get by. Living costs, food, clothing, and utilities were all extremely expensive. I worked long hours as a barista at a local coffee shop, but that was starting to interfere with my studies. I was majoring in biotechnology, a very demanding and competitive field at my school. The classes were intense and time-consuming. Sometimes I'd stay up for days trying to balance studying, attending lectures, and working. But hey, someone had to pay for bus passes and groceries. I didn't want to risk my grades or future career opportunities just because I needed money now. Worst of all, I had almost no social life. With midterms around the corner and finals just a few weeks after that, going out with friends or simply having fun wasn't an option. I needed to find a way to make money fast, and preferably from the comfort of my dorm room. I immediately thought of online jobs, but most seemed sketchy. They didn't take much time, sure, but they also paid next to nothing. I consulted with a friend who was in an upper-level course, and she suggested a few ideas. At first, we considered the possibility of finding a sugar daddy, but that meant meeting older, strange men in person, something that made me very uncomfortable. Then my friend proposed something else, selling slightly risque photos online. According to her, many people she knew had done it more than once. You didn't need to show your face, or even much of your body. People paid absurd amounts for even mildly suggestive photos. Coincidentally, my roommate had just moved in with her boyfriend, so I had the room all to myself. Given the circumstances, I thought this might be my best option. So without thinking too much, I signed up as a creator on OnlyFans. OnlyFans seemed to be the most reliable and well-known platform for that kind of content. Plus, it had a fairly decent system. It allowed creators to keep a good portion of their earnings. In fact, almost all the girls on campus already had their OnlyFans link in their Instagram bio, so I figured, what do I have to lose? Starting was way easier than I imagined. I was young and figured I had a decent body. I saved a little money and bought a cheap but functional ring light on Amazon. My phone camera was good enough for what I needed. I began by taking a profile picture. Nothing above the chin was visible. It was just a cute photo of me posing flirtatiously in lingerie. Then I paid a large Twitter account to promote my OnlyFans page. To my surprise, it worked. I got several subscribers and followers right away. I wasn't in the top 10 or anything, but I quickly made back the money I spent on the light and promotion within a few days. I even took the next week off from my coffee shop job. Eventually, I extended the break to study for midterms, and up to that point, OnlyFans was easily covering all my expenses. My audience was mostly men, both young and old. But one day, while responding to messages from subscribers, I noticed a direct message request with an unusually high payment attached. Sure, many of these guys had their weird preferences and paid surprising amounts for, say, foot pics, but this one was even stranger. A user named John Doe offered me $100 for a simple photo of me smiling. At first, I thought he'd made a mistake and added an extra zero, so I messaged him back to clarify. But he replied saying no, he was serious. He wanted a photo of me smiling and would pay that amount. Without giving it much thought, I took a selfie smiling and sent it. He paid the full amount. We kept chatting for a bit. Later, he asked for a video of my full body, from the neck down. He paid $50 for that. He also requested a photo of my hands, and after I sent it, he again paid a ridiculous amount. After those weird but harmless requests, his messages started changing tone. He began asking personal questions, how old I was, if I was single, and then they got creepier. How many partners I'd had, if I lived alone, if I was sexually active. I was really uncomfortable but tried not to be rude. After all, he was a big tipper. But when he asked if I had any STDs, I felt genuinely disturbed and ended the conversation. I closed the chat and moved on with my night, not giving it much more thought. I figured he was just another one of those weirdos you meet online. The next day I got home from class. The bus was running late, so I arrived a bit later than usual. I turned on my laptop to start what had become my night job and saw several unread messages on OnlyFans. They were all from John Doe, the same creepy guy from the night before. I hesitated before opening them, but eventually I did. They were a series of unhinged messages written frantically. At first, he offered enormous sums of money just to talk to him, but quickly the tone shifted to something much darker. He threatened me, said he would find me and hurt me for ignoring him. That was it for me. I reported his account to OnlyFans and blocked him immediately. No amount of money was worth that kind of attention. I closed my laptop and tried to forget about it. I didn't hear anything more from John Doe for the next few days. Everything returned to a sort of normal, until one afternoon around 4 p.m., something strange happened. I was in my apartment kitchen and decided to step out onto the balcony for some fresh air. While I was looking at the view, I noticed one of my neighbors on their balcony. That in itself wasn't weird, but the man, a much older gentleman, was staring directly at my building with a tense, intense expression. I waved politely, but he didn't wave back. That's odd, I thought. Then things got weirder. He pulled out binoculars and began scanning my building floor by floor. I was extremely unnerved. It was like he was looking for someone. Could it be me? Why would anyone be watching me? I went back inside, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. But then a terrifying thought hit me. What if that man was John Doe? What if the creepy guy from OnlyFans lived right across from me? I didn't want to waste time. I went straight to report it to the building management. Security spoke with the man, but they said they found nothing suspicious. They even tried to report it to the police, but no case was opened due to lack of evidence. I was really frustrated, but at least I didn't see the old man snooping around from his balcony again. I figured maybe he got the message and backed off. A few days later, I went out for some groceries. I was returning from the supermarket and just a few blocks away from my building. It was already late afternoon and starting to get dark, but the street lights were on and my neighborhood was fairly safe. Deep down, I knew walking alone at that hour wasn't the smartest thing for a young woman to do. But honestly, I just wanted to get home with my bags and relax. Still, as I walked, I got that strange feeling, like someone was watching me. I could feel eyes on me, tracking my every move. My building was close now, but the more nervous I got, the farther away it seemed. I subtly looked around, trying not to seem paranoid. And that's when I saw him. The old man, the same one from the balcony. He was across the street, eyes locked on me. I couldn't believe it. Him again. I quickened my pace and suddenly heard footsteps behind me. Those footsteps picked up speed to match mine. It felt like a silent race. I walked faster. So did he. I panicked and started to run. I wasn't a great athlete, but I was young and knew I could outrun him. I ran as fast as I could, turned a corner, and hid behind a bus stop. I was basically fleeing for my life. I knew I needed to go to the police, but first, I had to make it home, or at least somewhere safe. Who knew what that man was capable of, especially if he really was the guy who had stalked me on OnlyFans. But then something unexpected happened. A young man approached me. "Are you okay, miss?" he asked gently. He looked about my age, maybe a little older. He was casually dressed and fairly attractive. "Yes, well, I think someone's following me," I said, my voice trembling. "Don't worry, I can walk you to your building if you'd like," he offered kindly. At first I hesitated, understandably so. I was terrified and didn't trust anyone easily. But in that moment I was so scared I accepted. Any help felt welcome. The young man seemed polite and genuinely wanted to make sure I got home safely. As we walked, we chatted a bit about our lives, though he didn't say much about his. He said his name was Jay. Seemed like a decent guy. But just as we were approaching my building, I noticed something off. An old van was parked out front, one I had never seen in the neighborhood before. I wondered what it was doing there at that hour, but tried not to think too much of it. I just wanted to get to my door. Then, out of nowhere, someone shouted from behind me, "Wait! Wait!" It was the old man running toward me like he was trying to warn me about something. Before I could react or understand what was happening, I felt Jay's hand grip my shoulder tightly. He shoved me into the parked van and slammed the door shut. I didn't even have time to scream. Everything happened so fast I couldn't even process it. Jay slammed the van door shut and immediately started the engine. I tried to scream, but it was useless. The back of the van had no windows and no access to the front seats. It was completely sealed with wooden panels. I was trapped and I couldn't believe it. Jay was John Doe. Jay was the stalker from OnlyFans. But then, the old man. What role did he play in all this? My thoughts were abruptly interrupted when the vehicle stopped suddenly. Jay violently opened the back door. His expression was no longer the calm, kind look he had on the street. He looked deranged, like he had completely transformed into someone else. He pulled me out of the van by force. He taped my mouth shut, blindfolded me, and dragged me into a building. He was tall and strong, and I didn't have enough strength to fight back. I had no idea where I was, and terror consumed me completely. He locked me in what seemed to be a basement. There he started telling me all the horrible things he wanted to do to me, blaming me for ignoring him on OnlyFans. Then he walked away, and I was left there alone. I don't know how much time passed. Maybe just a few minutes, but it felt like hours. I lost all hope. Was this how my life was going to end? After all the effort and sacrifice, was this going to be my final moment? My mind filled with memories. My entire life flashed before my eyes. But suddenly I heard sirens outside. Could it be the police, or just an ambulance or a fire truck passing by? Moments later, I heard yelling and pounding at the door. "Police, we have a warrant. Come out with your hands up," they shouted. There was a tense silence, followed by loud noises, a struggle, and raised voices upstairs. A few minutes later, someone came down the stairs and removed my blindfold and the tape over my mouth. It was a police officer. The officer helped me out of that place. They took me straight to the police station, where they asked me several questions about Jay. I told them everything, from meeting him on OnlyFans to the disturbing messages and the moment he offered to walk me home. I showed them screenshots as evidence. Then they told me something that left me speechless. Jay had a history of mental health issues and had been institutionalized, but somehow had been released. I asked them how they had managed to find me in time, and what they told me chilled me to the bone. It turned out that the old man I had been suspicious of from the beginning was actually trying to protect me. According to the police, Jay had managed to track my IP address through OnlyFans and discovered where I lived. The most disturbing part? He lived relatively close by. Security camera footage showed Jay watching my building from his van, analyzing and monitoring my movements. The old man, who I thought was a stalker, had been using binoculars to monitor the suspicious van. He thought it was strange that an unfamiliar vehicle was parked so close to our residential area, and even more so that it was stationed directly in front of my building. He had followed me that afternoon to make sure I got home safely. He was already suspicious of Jay in the van, but by the time he realized something was happening, it was too late. Thankfully, he managed to write down the van's license plate number and reported it to the police immediately. Thanks to that, the authorities used traffic cameras and vehicle records to track the van's location and find me. Once I got back home, I told all my friends what had happened. I deleted my OnlyFans account that very same day. I went back to working at the coffee shop and tried to return to a normal life. It's been a year since that episode. The old man moved into a nearby assisted living center. Although we rarely speak, we never talked again about Jay or everything that happened. Story 2. For context, I'm 20 years old and my name is Jack. But the horror story I'm about to tell you didn't happen to me. It happened to a very close friend of mine, Cecilia. We met during the orientation mixer right after the first day of college classes. I had just moved from another city, excited to start at the university of my dreams, get the best education possible, and earn a strong degree in my field. Everything was new to me. My friends had stayed in my hometown, and I didn't know anyone here. So when I saw this beautiful young woman with a kind face, I decided to walk up and say hi. Cecilia was stunning, probably one of the sweetest people I've ever met. She had big, bright blue eyes, flawless skin. She stood out from everyone. To me, she shone like an angel. From the first moment, I felt she was someone special. There was something about her presence, that first impression, that made me think we'd share unforgettable moments. So I greeted her with a big smile, and it truly was a pleasure to meet her. Turns out she was also new to the city and feeling a bit lonely. She came from another state and was hoping to make new friends. Since we both had the same goal, I invited her to grab a coffee that same day. After that, I kept meeting other freshmen. I made friendships that day that I still keep to this day. But from then on, the bond between Cecilia and me grew very close. We sat next to each other in class, ate lunch together, and video called almost daily. We talked about everything, even harmless gossip about classmates. We became best friends, inseparable. But sadly, not everything was perfect. I was lucky to have financial support from my parents. I could rent an apartment and afford everything I needed for student life without worries. But Cecilia didn't have that kind of support. No one was helping her financially. She had to make it on her own. She worked at a McDonald's on a tough shift, long and exhausting hours. That routine began to affect her studies, and it became harder and harder for her to focus and do well in school. It just wasn't working for her, so she started looking for other ways to make money online, something more flexible. She asked me for advice or ideas, but I didn't know what to say. The truth is, I had never worked a day in my life. What could I possibly tell her? One day, Cecilia discovered a website called OnlyFans. It was pretty new and very popular at the time. I didn't know much about the platform, other than it being associated with adult content, and that practically every girl on Twitch or Instagram had it linked in their bio. One night during a video call, she explained how it worked. She told me she could earn hundreds or even thousands of dollars just by posting pictures in lingerie. According to her, men were so desperate they would pay a fortune for that kind of content. She said she could finally be independent without killing herself working. She explained that she didn't even need to show any private parts. She could just focus on simple fetishes. Some guys only wanted to see her hands or her feet. She was amazed at the possibility of earning so much with so little effort, and she was determined to open an account. Right then, I tried to warn her that it wasn't a good idea. At first, it sounded like the perfect job. Easy money, no schedule, no boss. But something about it all seemed too good to be true. I told her that exposing her face and body to a bunch of strangers and perverts on the internet could be dangerous. You never really know the true intentions of someone hiding behind a screen. But she brushed off my concerns. She believed it was the perfect solution to her problems. She didn't mind showing her body if it meant financial freedom. I couldn't believe she was that desperate. We had a small argument, but I let it go. I realized she wouldn't change her mind, so I decided not to push it any further. Soon after, she opened her account and started posting photos. A few days passed, and Cecilia told me it had been the best decision she'd ever made. She said she now earned 3 times more than she did at McDonald's with much less effort. She could finally focus on her studies and had time to relax. But then she confessed something that really bothered me. Some men had paid her thousands of dollars for fully nude photos. I warned her again that this was going to end badly, that some sick person could become obsessed with her and hurt her. But as always, she didn't listen. It bothered me. I felt her body should be something saved for someone who truly loved her, who cared about her, someone who was actually there for her. But at the end of the day, it was her body, her life, and it wasn't my place to decide for her. For a few weeks, things seemed to go back to normal, until one day something awful happened. We usually met up each morning before class, but that day Cecilia didn't show up. I thought it was strange. I checked my phone, but there were no messages from her. Stranger still, she hadn't been online since the night before. I went through my day thinking maybe she overslept or wasn't feeling well, but she didn't show up for lunch either, or sit with me in class. That night I checked my phone again. Still no sign of her. 2 days passed, and then her family and friends started calling me. They wanted to know if I'd seen her or knew anything. No one had any idea where she was. It was like she had vanished from the face of the earth. Her mom eventually called the police and reported her missing, and the search began. In the days that followed, the police began questioning everyone close to Cecilia, including me. They wanted to know when was the last time someone saw or spoke to her. But more days went by, and still there wasn't a single clue about her whereabouts. With no results, the authorities asked for volunteers to help expand the search. I joined in, along with several of her friends. Flashlights in hand, we combed through nearby forests, paths, and trails. It was exhausting. We climbed, we walked, we searched everywhere, but found no trace of her or her body. By that point, her parents were heartbroken. They wept uncontrollably, knowing that when someone has been missing for so long, the chances of survival are slim. Eventually, the police obtained a warrant to search her apartment. They expected to find signs of violence, some evidence of a struggle, maybe a mess or things knocked over. But everything was in perfect order. Nothing was broken. No furniture out of place, no struggle. It didn't make sense. If someone had kidnapped her, there had to be some evidence. But no, absolutely nothing. The only thing that stood out was her OnlyFans account open on her laptop, with her photos still visible. Detectives began to suspect that maybe one of her subscribers had something to do with it. They went through her laptop thoroughly, checking her private messages and subscriber list, but they found nothing useful. Not even the top investigator on the case had a solid theory. No one knew where Cecilia was. No one could say if she was still alive. There were no suspects, no witnesses. The police and volunteers continued the search for almost another month. They did everything they could. Put up flyers, posted her photo all over social media, followed leads, but nothing ever came of it. Eventually, the authorities closed the case. Her family was destroyed, her friends too, and me. Well, I felt lucky. I let out a sigh of relief. My plan had worked, and I was satisfied with that. It was a brilliant idea. I left her body in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse about 90 miles from the city. No one ever suspected me, because I played the role everyone expected. The good friend, the one who was devastated, the one who only wanted the best for her. I warned her not to use OnlyFans, but she wouldn't listen. I couldn't stand the thought of other men, old, filthy, desperate men, seeing her body. It made me sick to see those pictures circulating. She was supposed to be mine, and mine alone. Maybe if she hadn't been so stubborn, if she had listened to my warnings, she'd still be alive. We were meant to be together. We looked perfect side by side, but she only treated me like just another friend. And that, I simply couldn't accept. I don't regret it. I'm completely at peace with what I did. Story 3. I want to start this story by making something clear. At no point do I consider myself a hero or anything like that. What I did was simply what any halfway decent person would have done in my place. I don't need validation or praise. This story happened several months ago, but it's still fresh in my memory. It was late November, and the boredom from quarantine had reached its peak. We had been stuck at home for almost a year, and my county had just gone into its second full lockdown after a new outbreak. I'm a young man, and let's just say being home all day started to awaken certain impulses. The girl I had been seeing had cut off all contact, and my sex life was completely at a standstill. Yes, I had work, a cat to take care of, some chores around the house. But I think we can all understand how during lockdown, the mind starts to fill with thoughts you'd usually keep under control. One morning while scrolling through social media, I came across the profile of an incredibly attractive girl. She had just under 8,000 followers on Instagram and about 3,000 on Twitter. Her name was Anna, and honestly, she was stunning. It looked like she was gaining some popularity online. I looked through her profiles and found a link in her bio. It was a link tree. One of the links led to her OnlyFans account. Normally, I don't spend money on that kind of thing. There's tons of free adult content online, and I'd never come across a girl interesting enough to justify paying for a subscription. But Anna was completely my type, and more than anything, I was bored and in the mood. So I thought, why not? If there was ever a time to say screw it and try something new, it was then. I reluctantly entered my credit card information. The subscription was about $10 a month, $7 for new users. Honestly, not bad. It was my first time using OnlyFans, but I have to say I was satisfied with what I saw. There were more exclusive, provocative photos of Anna on her page. A few days passed, and I kept logging in now and then. After all, I'd already paid for the month. In a way, I even felt good about financially supporting her. In her photos, the space she filmed in always looked dark and run down. It made me think she probably wasn't living in the best conditions. As I explored the platform more, I discovered there was a feature that allowed subscribers to send direct messages to creators, basically like Instagram DMs. You could also send tips for custom content. One night, especially bored and with a few bucks to spare, I decided to message her. I said hi, and minutes later I got a response. A photo of her making a two-finger gesture near her mouth, like a flirty little wave. I didn't want to jump straight into asking for photos. I tried to start a small conversation, but she avoided all my questions. She wouldn't say her age or where she was from. The only thing she answered was how she felt, a simple fine. It was a bit odd, but I figured she probably had hundreds of guys messaging her. Why would I be special? Still, I sent a couple of photo requests. Some cost just a few dollars to unlock suggestive images. After a few exchanges, I logged out for the night. But before I did, I browsed through her page again, reviewing the pictures I'd already paid for. And that's when something caught my attention. As I kept scrolling through her profile, I noticed that in several photos, Anna was making hand gestures. They weren't the usual peace signs or playful poses. There was something familiar about them. I paused. I looked more closely, more carefully, and then it hit me. She was using sign language. I grew up in a family where my younger sister is deaf, so I learned American Sign Language, ASL, from an early age. Because of that, I recognized the signs Anna was making in her photos. In one image, she held her fingers in a gesture similar to a tilted V that was the letter H. In another, she made a motion that looked like a cat playing with a hand, but in ASL it meant E. Then in another, her hand was on her forehead forming what looked like an L. And finally, in one photo, her finger slid suggestively down her arm, but it was actually the letter P in sign language. H-E-L-P. Help. I froze. At first, I thought these were just flirty poses, a different kind of sexy aesthetic. But in reality, she was asking for help. Why was she sending that message? Why through OnlyFans? Why to me? And why not go directly to the police? I immediately messaged her. Are you okay, Anna? Do you need help? What's going on? A few minutes later, she replied with a video. In it, she discreetly signed in ASL. Do you know sign? I responded saying yes, I understood. I asked her where she was. She replied with another video signing. I don't know. My mind was racing. What did all this mean? Was it some twisted joke? A social experiment? Or was she really trapped and in danger? I asked if she knew what city or area she was in. She answered again. I don't know. I didn't wait another second. I called the police immediately. I told them everything, from the messages to the videos in sign language. When I spoke with the police, I explained everything in detail. Anna's OnlyFans profile, the messages, the hand signs in American Sign Language, the videos, absolutely everything. They took the case very seriously. Before long, they were able to identify the girl. Her real name wasn't Anna. It was Layla Ronson. She was a college student who had been reported missing months earlier. The university had assumed she dropped out due to lack of attendance, but the truth was much darker. Authorities discovered that Layla had been forced to create content on OnlyFans against her will, using a fake identity. They used the IP address from her account to trace the location where the videos and messages had been sent from. The address matched a high-end residential complex a few hours from where I lived, but still within the same state. The local police acted quickly. They tracked down the residents and carried out a raid. They found Layla. She was rescued from the basement of a house where she had been held captive. They also arrested her abductor. Investigators determined that she had been kidnapped for quite some time and forced to produce content for OnlyFans and other platforms from that dark basement. The man was pocketing all the money. Layla had become a prisoner, reduced to a source of income for her captor. A few days later, I received a call. It was her, Layla. She thanked me for helping her. She said the man had constantly threatened her, saying that if she ever asked for help, or even hinted at it, he would hurt her or kill her. She confessed that every time she recorded, he would stand in the corner of the basement, watching, making sure she didn't try to communicate with anyone. It was a miracle that she managed to sneak those hidden messages to me. I haven't spoken to her since. The same day she called, I deleted my OnlyFans account. I didn't want anything to do with that platform or that experience. It's not a memory I enjoy having.